Hip Hop Uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Hip Hop Uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Oh God, driving Sam and riding passenger side, and you heard it out the mouth of the greatest rapper alive. Go gang.
Winter is here. Make sure you go cozy up and get yourself a new Hip Hop Uncensored hoodie. You can go to the top line of the description box and go get yours right now. Tell them, oh God, sent you. All right, also, man, you already know what it means. You're rocking with the best. Make sure you guys click the like button. Make sure you leave a comment below. But most importantly, make sure you guys subscribe to Hip Hop News Uncensored for more exclusive just like this.
Right, so let's jump over here to Alpo Martinez.
I didn't mean to go on and on with that answer, but
no, talk as long as you want.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about Alpo Martinez. Take us back to what got him on the FBI's radar. Can you take us back to that and your first time, finding out who he was and investigating him?
Well, I'm talking a little bit off the out of my element here because I wasn't as such running a drug investigation operation. Alpo was a drug dealer.
Right.
And our understanding at the time was that he got into trouble in New York. I think over the murder of Richie Porter now, in terms of my understanding of how it worked. And he came to basically hide out into D.C. The first thing that happened to him when he came to D.C. Was he started distributing drugs around D.C. and in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And he got shot by a couple of guys from Northeast, which was not unusual in those days. D.C. Drug dealers didn't appreciate people that came in from out of town. And so they would, attack them, just because they came in from out of town. And I think that's what happened to him. He was put in the hospital, and my partner, Detective Angelo Parisi, went and interviewed him and got a pretty substantial amount of information from him because I think Alpo thought he was dying while he was in the hospital. But then a couple of days passed where Angelo went and sort of discussed what he had found out from Alpo and determined that there was actually a case to be made, especially down in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area. And then when he went back to talk to him some more, by that point he had been released from the hospital and he was just in the wind. It's the simplest way to put it. And then we found out, because I at the time was targeting Wayne Perry. He was the guy that I was supposed to put in jail. We found out that Wayne was working for and with Alpo and basically acting as his protector in DC. And so they went from, being out and about in the daytime to really becoming like vampires. They'd operate late at night. And so my problem at the time was Alpo had like 2 warrants for him, I think, out of New York, maybe a kidnap warrant and maybe even the murder warrant. I'm not certain what it was, but I just needed to get him locked up, to get him out of the way, because he was basically interfering with my case. My guy wasn't acting the way he normally acted with Alpo there. And so I was kind of missing the boat on being able to put my case together. And luckily I had a good confidential source who was able to give me a location where Alpo was going to be on a particular day at a particular time. And Angelo and a team of guys that worked on the drug side of the case, Scott Yao and some other guys, they made the arrest and put Alpo in jail. And for me, that was kind of like the end of it, because we never believed that he was ever going to cooperate. Right. But what it came down to was, I think he sort of became aware of the fact that if he stayed in DC jail, Wayne would get at him and get rid of him. And I think he also realized that if he accepted the transfer back to New York, that if he went to New York, he was not going to last too long in whatever it was in those days, the Tombs, or I don't even know what you call it in New York.
Right.
And so the thing that he made a decision to do was to plead guilty to the Virginia case. And we then incarcerated him over in Virginia. At that point, he also realized that if he went to the federal correctional institution, that he was probably going to be dead there, because the people in New York had plenty of contacts in the Bureau of Prisons. And I think that was what pushed him. He was basically put in a corner. Any way he looked, he was going to end up dead. So that was when he made the decision to plead guilty and accept, witness protection. So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
From that point, we had to debrief him and go over all the cases that he knew about. And he had to plead guilty to a substantial amount of cases. My recollection is he pled guilty to 14 homicides. And he got basically an interim sentence of 35 years. And I think he did 30 of it.
So he cooperates. He obviously gets put in witness protection. He does his time. He gets out. And it almost seems like he's a comic book villainous character. We know everybody.
I would think that was how it was. I had several contacts with him, when I was dealing with him, but I didn't get a lot of, like personal FaceTime with him. But I always sort of thought he was a smart, interesting character. A lot of people that I've put in jail over the years are boring and foolish and stupid, but he seemed to have a lot of charisma and a lot of, there's just too many good things about him that made him, that you just looked at and you said, why the hell did he get into the criminal world? He could have done almost anything, especially, just with a personality like he had. He could have, he could have sold the Brooklyn Bridge to anybody that wanted to buy it. But the bottom line to that was that when you see somebody like that and they've made the decision to live the life that he did, and I'm sure it had to do with the money and the resources that he got from dealing drugs, but you just feel bad for him. But on the other hand, I had an important function to do. I had to get rid of who I thought was the beast of DC. I mean, from my viewpoint, Wayne Perry made Alpo seem mild in terms of, the stuff that was going on around him and how he did what he did. And so for us to use the information that Alpo gave us, that made a lot of sense. I mean, sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil in order to get a worse devil. And that's kind of what we did.
So the witness protection program, I guess they call it WITSEC for short. He was in that, from what we know, when he was killed on October the 31st. So how does that protect someone? And did he go outside of the protection of them? Is he supposed to let them know he's going certain places? How does that whole thing kind of work? Because
you have to understand that in Alpo's case, there were two different levels of it.
Okay.
The WITSEC program that he was in when he was in prison they sent him to actually a separate facility, federal facility, probably somewhere in the United States. I mean, I've been to some of those facilities and they're connected with some of the regular penitentiaries, but they're, obviously protected from everybody else. The only other people that he will see is other people cooperating. So that keeps them safe while they're incarcerated. They serve their time. They pretty much have the same facilities, but they stay in prison. That's run by the Bureau of Prisons. The WITSEC program that you hear about on TV, the program, for example, that Sammy the Bull Gravano, do you know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
He was in the WITSEC unit or program from the Marshal Service. And that program is a different animal. It's a series of rules that you have to follow. And if you don't follow them, you immediately get kicked out. Boom, it's like, no, you're done and we're never going to use you again. When I heard, I guess a year or two ago, that he was driving around New York City, that just indicated to me that he's not in the program anymore. We're not allowed, FBI agents weren't allowed to know whether somebody stayed in the program or left or whatever. That that's a rule that we have to follow. We don't have any connection to him. The only way we can talk to somebody in the WITSEC program that's run by the Marshal Service is to go back to the original prosecutor and ask that prosecutor to get us in touch with the guy. And then they might set up some third-party location where we could go interview him. But in that program, if that's what he was in when he was released, which I think he should have been, they would have never allowed him to go to New York. Right. That wasn't even every rule that I ever heard of in the WITSEC program in the Marshal Service, that would have been an immediate disqualifier for him. So if somebody says he was in the program when he left, I don't know. I would guess that he wouldn't be. Could he have another name that they got for him before he left? Yeah. Could he have been living under an assumed name with some kind of protected address? All that's possible. But a lot of it was his own resources and his own decision. That would be how I would view it. I'm not up to date on it. I'm certainly have no inside information on how he was being handled. And that's kind of what it is. It's a program that really tries to keep the witnesses secure. So in the case of Sammy the Bull Gravano, for example, he went out west to Seattle, Washington, and he was supposed to stay out there. But Sammy couldn't avoid criminal activity, and he started selling steroids or something out there. I have no idea what, and he got locked up again. So I mean, that's what happens. Is if you the only life you know is how to commit crime, no matter how concerned you are about your personal safety, a lot of times that that old bad stuff takes over and you do something stupid. Right. In Alpo's case, I feel for his family. I just wish that he would have been smart enough to stay away from New York. I think he would have probably survived then. But if I just don't know how intent on revenge, if that's what the case was, if it was some kind of revenge from somebody locally in your town, or somebody that knew him from here, some friend of Wayne Perry's, for example, whoever it might be that decided to kill him. If it was revenge, the way to avoid being killed under those circumstances is just go and keep a low profile. And I don't think he was doing that.